Well, welcome back to the Power Breakfast Show, the newspaper review, and we are now in the second hour, or straight into the second hour rather. And we interrupt the paper review for some breaking news. We want to let you know that ex-TJRC chairman, Ambassador Bethel Kiplagat, has passed on. He died at the age of 81. He passed on at a Nairobi hospital a few hours ago after a long illness. Just to take you through a bit of his career, he served as the chairman of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. He's also been Kenya's special envoy to the Somali peace process, or Somalia peace process, from 2003 to 2005. He also headed the board of the African Medical and Research Foundation. Prior to that, he served in the then President Daniel Arap Moi's government for 13 years. That's from 1978 to 1991 as Kenya's ambassador to France, High Commissioner to Britain, and a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He is also the founder and former executive director of Africa Peace Forum. That is the information that we have right now, and of course want to send our condolences to his family and friends, and we'll give you more updates as and when we get them. And that is the news and information that we have for now. Well, we return to the debate now in studio. We're taking a look at news-making headlines in the newspapers today. Earlier on, we were talking about hostile crowds and, of course, campaign hostilities as well. And so we'll be coming back now to continue with that. But I want to turn our attention now to page 21 of the Standard, a statement by clerics, even as we have 24 days and counting to the August elections, and they are cautioning on poll chaos. Let me just read briefly some of the opening statements in this article. Religious leaders have warned that the country might plunge into election-related violence next month. The leaders, drawn from 8 groups representing various denominations under the umbrella of the Multi-Sectoral Forum, urge the IEBC to work closely with all players to forestall chaos. Washington, you were about to speak before we took that break. When clerics, when people in authority, when people of importance make such statements, does it work well, or could it, quote-unquote, backfire in the volatile political environment that we are in right now?
It's a double-edged sword, in that in 2007, there were warning signs, quite visible warning signs actually. There was a bit of intolerance. The political alignments were such that violence was predictable. But we didn't do much. There were warnings, people talked about it, we didn't do much, violence occurred, and we didn't know how to protect ourselves. In 2013, we over-prepared. Yeah, there was over-preparedness, everybody warned there was going to be violence, so we were ready for whatever it is that would have come up. Of course, the politicians agreed much earlier that they would go to court if anything happened, and therefore that was forestalled. We have a fairly similar scenario to 2007. Right now, in terms of the political divide, the partisanship, the kind of intolerance that we see. And in my opinion, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to be over-prepared, to give as much warning as possible, so that everybody knows that there's a possibility that there will be violence. However, on the flip side, that in itself could actually get people ready to actually fight. Yeah, so that we are ready for this thing. Everybody says there's going to be violence, so let me prepare for violence. And it puts it in your mind that something is likely to happen that will make you go to the street, make you go and start banning things. I'm hoping, and I keep saying this, no politician's ambition, no political party's interest is worth the life of even a single Kenyan.
So how should IEBC, the police, NCIC balance that fine line between over-preparedness, as you've said, but also refrain from alarmist comments, and this I'm speaking to anybody who have a voice, who can speak and cause impact on the ground. Where is that balance?
When clerics say there's the rising levels of intolerance, or other leaders say it serves to warn us. It serves to warn us, because at the end of it they say, please, let's do everything possible to stop the potential violence that we see happening. When a political party or political leader stand up and say, if these elections are stolen, this country will burn, it has a completely different meaning in that context, because then you are telling your supporters that anything other than me winning means the election has been stolen. And the thing is, we've bastardized IBC to a point that no matter what they do, they will never be seen by half of the country, will never see them as fair, as credible, as having authority to conduct these elections in a free and fair manner. And I caution politicians that you can fight amongst yourself. In fact, you can even heckle at political rallies. But you cannot, on a daily basis, bastardize the institution that all of you expect to deliver a free and fair election. Because even that institution is not made of stones, it's made of human beings. And if you keep bastardizing them, if you keep saying they're incompetent, you keep calling for their resignation, who knows? I mean, they might just drop the ball. And then what? Okay, so IBC doesn't perform its work properly. So then what? We ban this country, and for how long? Yeah, so that someone can get to power. It doesn't make sense. And I have seen the president say this many times. I think the fourth time now. He's come up and said, I lose this election, I will concede. He has conceded before in 2002. And said do it again.
And in all fairness, Raila said the same. I watched him in an interview yesterday where he said, yes, politics is like a football match. There's a winner and there's a loser.
Raila's people. Raila says this.
Who are Raila's people? Who are Raila's people?
On Friday. You remember the week people, you mean his team? Last week on Friday.
Go ahead.
Last week on Friday when he was addressing the press in Mombasa after Nkaiseri's death. Yeah. He said something to the effect. In fact, I think I will probably quote him. Said something to the effect that if these elections are not free and fair, yeah, then we might have problems in this country.
True.
And the thing is, no amount of unfairness or an incredibility of an election justifies violence.
David, come in.
No. You know,
in fact, we have a Supreme before David does that.
Yeah.
The reason we have a Supreme Court with original and exclusive jurisdiction on presidential petitions is to forestall things like this. NASA cannot be running to the courts, cannot be happy with the High Court, the judiciary, when it rules in their favor, and on the one issue that a court has original jurisdiction on and that will deal with exclusively, you do not want to go to court. You say if it's unfair and fair, there will be violence, this country will ban. Go to court.
I want to correct my brother Washington. We are in a country a regime that has had its problems. All right, you've had the Unga crisis, you've had the abundance of corruption as has never been seen before. We are in debt like we have never been. We have a railway constructed, but the billions lost in it would build a road from Mombasa to all the way to Kisumu. When some of these things rise up, you have nurses on strike. People are dying while they're on strike, and doctors and lecturers. When you have such, then you have a populace that may not appreciate the regime that is currently governing the nation. Their only recourse is a credible election, to be able to state clearly that they are not happy with the regime and they need a change of regime. Now, these people, at the very least, require a credible and transparent process, a convincing process that would show them that if what they wanted went through, it did rightly, and if the leadership they wanted did not make it, then it failed rightly. When you do not do that, though, when you do not seem to be credible, and that's why NASA has time and time again, and I applaud them for doing that, for telling IBC that look here, this is about the country. The country has its eyes on you alone. Show us that you're not going to be another ECK that will go and bungle the election. Show us that you have risen above the executive manipulation from the presidency as the current serving regime, and that you can be truly independent to deliver a free, fair and credible election. And whereas I have had the constant pursuit of peace by different players in the field. Oh, let's maintain peace. Oh, let's maintain peace. You know what? The only way and the only reason people go to the election is to peacefully show their dissatisfaction with one arm and put in power another. And their satisfaction with another. It's the most peaceful way. So what do you do then? Have a credible election. It's not like when there is when the elections are not credible and violence outbursts happen, they will be machinated by someone, puppeteered. I mean, I know that should that happen, then the NASA boss, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, in 2013, he went to court. Nothing would stop him from going to court this time. However, he's not in control of the thousands of people who miss Unga and want to say, you know what, Jubilee, you have failed us. We want something different. And that's vice versa. If the Jubilee people will feel that the election has been rigged in the favor of NASA, then the president may not be able to control his people. And you see, that is why they've ended up. We were saying offset, and I want to say, you have seen recent NCIC has recently even mapped out places they call hotspots.
That's right.
But how surprising is it that 98 or 90% of them would be in bases of NASA? It brings questions. You then ask that Wanaole Kaparo, you have slept for 4 years not doing your job. All right? And no, that's the truth.
In his defense, he has spoken about capacity issues.
Bring me to the panel with him, and I will tell him why he has not done his job. But that's besides the point. How come then, for 2, 3, 1 month into the election, you're coming up with these perceived hotspots? Then suddenly, the government is buying these water cannons and preparing ready for deterrence of supposed crowds, basing where they will take these cannons on the report by NCIC, which marks NASA's bases. It's problematic. You're going to end up with chaos. And so I wish and I hope the bottom line is that we have credible and transparent elections. With that, the losers of that election will have no reason whatsoever, so long as it has been convincingly seen that it was above par. There will be no reason for violence.
Let me ask a question.
Let me allow Sandra also to weigh in on this. Go ahead, Sandra.
And for me, this is a very sensitive topic. And David, I must say, you are talking from a position of privilege and utter disrespect, especially for those who suffered, especially for those who suffered violence during the 2007 post-election violence. And for me, it's three things, David. First is threat inflation. Secondly is disinformation, and third is psychological warfare. And I wrote about this a couple of days ago, where you have threat inflation, where you are viewing everything as threat. A simple story. Take, for instance, the challenges that the IBC is facing. Whatever challenge that comes up, it is inflated as a threat, so that IBC is not being seen as a companion in this process. It is seen as a threat. Every single thing it does, it's brought under question with the motive of influencing people's perceptions towards it. And then there's a lot of disinformation, which as you've also rightly talked about, where you have a lot of misinformation and half-truths going around. Take, for instance, issues of credibility. What does a particular constituency understand of what does credibility mean? What does independence mean? So in many instances, if someone says credibility, as Makondingo had mentioned, someone says credibility only if the circumstances favor me. The IBC is only independent if it works to my bidding. And that brings to the third point on psychological warfare. What we are seeing right now, in my perspective, is psychological warfare, where threats have been inflated. Things that are not even threats to begin with have been made into threats. The statements that are being said, oh, if this does not happen, then it's going to be war. These things about hotspots being marked here and there, all that is threat inflation and psychological warfare.
Wouldn't you also say that psychological warfare is happening on both ends? When you see the president and his deputy talking about postponing elections, a plan to postpone elections, some quarters would say that that's also psychological warfare from the Jubilee side, as much as you're saying that on the NASA side, quote-unquote stolen elections is part of their strategy. Aren't both sides playing the same game?
And to some level, one will look at it like that. But one thing that I think I'd give Jubilee credit for is that the leadership has come out over and over again saying that let us talk peace, let us accept the election results regardless of what comes out. We have systems and structures. If this fails, then we are able to move to other processes.
I know we need to take another break. Washington, David, then we go for that break. Go ahead.
You know, David, it's also good to be...
Are you giving your point or talking to him?
Yeah, I'm saying this.
Okay, go ahead.
Information is power. When you see an area or the country mapped as hotspot, there is a science to it. People don't wake up and decide that NASA area is a hotspot.
Yes.
There's a science to it. But on the credibility of elections, I have yet to see a single incident that can demonstrate that the elections will not be credible. Yeah, everything is in place. In fact, the only people contributing to the elections not being credible are NASA. I suspect they want to use exercise books the way they use in their nomination processes, because they are barring ballot papers from being printed. But IBC has done everything right. You remember a couple of weeks ago, over a period of 1 month, when you were verifying your details, I did not hear. I went to a polling station, and in 2 minutes, I had verified my details. The system, Teams was working. The system was properly functioning. There was no report of it not working anywhere else. They have done twice. They have done the tests on KIMS, and it's working. The process works. There is nothing out there that shows this election will fail, and yet we keep demanding and threatening that if the elections are not free, fair, and credible, there is nothing. What is out there that shows they will not be free, fair, and credible? Jubilee have said they'll do everything it takes. The government has given the IBC everything, the capacity they need to do this. IBC has developed capacity. They have hired people. They have hired competent people. They have consulted in the process. There is nothing out there that shows that these elections will not be free and fair. And NASA should therefore stop this continued threat, warmongering, that if they are not free and fair, unless they want to make them not free and fair, unless they want to rig the elections, in which case we'll stop them.
Okay.
Right at this.
David, because I don't want to cut you off for the break, can you allow me, let me take the break, so when I come back I can give you good time, adequate time to respond to what they've both spoken. But of course you're watching the newspaper review live on Citizen TV. Just to bring you up to date with what's happening in the country right now, what we know is that ex-TGRC chairman Ambassador Bethel Kiplagat has passed on at the age of 81. He died in a Nairobi hospital. That's about 3 a.m. this morning after a long illness. He's a former diplomat and Kenyan government official who served as the chairman of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission from 2009 to 2010. He was also Kenya's special envoy to the Somalia peace process from 2003 to 2005. He headed the board of the African Medical and Research Foundation as well from 1991 to 2003. You may also want to know that prior to that, he served in the then President Daniel Arap Moi's government for 13 years. That's from 1978 to 1991 as Kenya's ambassador to France, High Commissioner to Britain, and a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And as we mentioned earlier, our condolences to his family and friends at this time. Also, right here at the Raw Media Services on Radio Citizen, NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga is live right now as we speak, talking about NASA, the upcoming elections, and a lot of issues affecting Kenya at the moment. Let's have a listen in, even as that interview goes on.
Utalishughulikia kivipi?
Mambo ya ajira ni changamoto kubwa sana katika taifa letu wakati huu. Manake sasa karibu vijana milioni 12 ambaye hawana kazi. Yani wakati huu kwa wale ambayo wamehitimu umri ya kufanya kazi ambao wanahitaji ajira, ambayo wako nje ya kazi zaidi ya 40%. Hiyo ni idadi kubwa sana ya vijana, na hiyo idadi inazidi kuongezeka. Sababu ni uchumi haipanuki kiasi ile ambayo inaweza kumeza wale wote ambao wako katika soko ya kazi. Na serikali ya Jubilee hawajatumia mbinu mwafaka ya kuweza kupanua kazi katika taifa letu. Sisi kuna mbinu na tumeweka katika manifesto wetu. Ati kwanza tunajua ya kwamba sekta ya kibinafsi just formal employment haiwezi ikameza wale wote ambao katika soko ya kazi. Tutaanzisha eneo zingine za kutengeneza bidhaa zinaitwa kwa kimombo industrial parks katika counties zetu. Hizi industrial parks itaweza kumeza vijana wengi ambao hawana kazi. Wataingia pale, watapata ajira kutengeneza bidhaa, na vile vile kutakuwa na soko ya kuuza hizo bidhaa, ingine ya kusafirishwa na kupelekwa katika soko za ng'ambo. Vile sekta za kibinafsi, yani informal sector, vile sisi tutatafuta njia ya kuwasaidia kwa upande mwingine ya kwa mfano kupata mkopo ya pesa kwa njia ya urahisi, na vile ambao wanaweza kulipa na riba ile ambayo inawezekana. Na lakini muhimu zaidi kwanza ni kutoa mafunzo kwa vijana. Na vile unavyojua kila mwaka sasa tunatoa vijana karibu 800,000 ambao wanamaliza shule katika stage tofauti wanaingia kwa soko ya kazi. hawa vijana hawana ujuzi ya yoyote, yani kama inaitwa skills. Sasa sisi tutapanusha vituo vya kutoa mafunzo kwa wao vijana ili waweze kwenda kuna kujifanyia wao wenyewe kazi, yani badala ya kuwa watafuta kazi wao wale ambao wanaajiri watu. Kutafuta ajira wewe kwani wewe ndio unaajiri watu. Vile walifanya kwa mfano kule Malaysia, kule upande ya Uchina, upande ya India na kadhalika. Tuko na mfano mwafaka ambayo tunaweza kuiga katika taifa letu. Sisi tuna hakika tutaanza kumeza pole wale vijana ambao wako nje ya kazi na kuingiza wao katika ajira. Uchumi itapanuka, manake sasa tutakuwa tunatengeneza mali na utaona kama kwa mfano uchumi itaanza kupanua kutoka kwa kiwango cha 5%, sasa tutaenda kwa 7%, tukielekea kwa 10%. Sisi kama NASA tuna hakika tutaweza kufanya haya.
Wakosoaji wako mheshimiwa kwa hili la vijana ni kwamba huna nia njema kwa vijana, kwa sababu mpango wa kazi kwa vijana ulikosa kufaulu na ukasambaratika chini ya afisi yako ukiwa waziri mkuu.
Hiyo ni propaganda kubwa sana, na vijana wa Kenya wenyewe wanaijua. Yani wakati tulipoingia katika serikali ya mseto mwaka wa 2008, tuliona kama kulikuwa na ufukara mingi zaidi katika taifa letu, na sisi tukasema kwanza tuwe na hatua ya kidharura kujaribu kusaidia vijana waweze kupata pesa kwa mfuko ya kufanya kazi yao, kununua chakula na kadhalika. Hiyo ni sababu tukaja na hiyo mpango ambayo inaitwa kazi kwa vijana. Hiyo kazi kwa vijana ilikuwa vijana wanawekwa kwenye kazi shughuli za mkono, kwa mfano kuchimba mabwawa ya maji au vidimbi vya maji, kupanda miche ya miti, sabuni, kupanda ujenzi ya barabara na kadhalika. Hiyo mpango ilisaidia vijana, walipata pesa kwa mfuko yao wakati ile. Na hata shirika zingine za ulimwengu kama Benki Kuu na zingine kama ile USAID na DFID na zote walishukuru na walikuwa tayari kuweka pesa kwa hiyo mpango kusaidia vijana. Lakini porojo ilitokea na ikasababisha kusimamishwa kwa hiyo mpango. Lakini hiyo mpango inafanya kazi, imeshafanya kazi kwa nchi mingi zaidi, imesaidia vijana. Na baadaye wakaleta mpango yao nyingine ya kujenga masoko na kujenga workshops, na hiyo vile vile haikufaulu hata kidogo. Sisi tutakuwa na mpango ya kwanza ya kidharura ya kusaidia vijana, alafu ile mpango inaitwa short term, medium term na long term plans to provide youth employment. Sisi tuko na ile mpango kama NASA.
Tunapoangazia swala hili kuhusu kupanda kwa gharama ya maisha, umekuwa ukizungumzia kushuka kwa kodi ya nyumba, jambo ambalo limewaumiza Wakenya wengi wanaoishi katika maeneo ya mijini. Sijui swala hili utalishughulikia kivipi, kwa sababu nyumba nyingi hapa nchini Kenya ziko mikononi mwa watu binafsi.
Mimi nikiongea juu ya mambo ya kodi ya nyumba, najua yale ambayo mimi nasema, manake tofauti na wanasiasa wengi hapa, mimi ni jogoo la mji, wengi hao wengine ni jogoo la shamba. Kwa hivyo hawaelewi vizuri shida ambayo inakumba wakaaji wa mji katika taifa letu. Mimi kwa mfano nimekuwa mbunge wa eneo wa Lang'ata kwa miaka 20, na wengi wale waishi katika kijiji cha Kibera, na nikiongea mimi najua naongea kwa niaba yao. Naongea kwa wale ambao wanaishi upande wa Madhari, Mkuru kwa Njenga, kule upande wa Dandora, upande wa Kangemi na kadhalika. Hizi ambao zinaitwa slums na informal settlements. Pale kuna wale ambayo wamejenga majumba huko, wanajiita ati landlords, lakini terms mzuri na structure owners, manake hata ardhi si yao. Hao watu hupata ruhusa kutoka kwa serikali